In the 1990s, the bishops collectively in Connecticut said that they were having a problem with the Satanists stealing the hosts.
It's me, Whitfield, and I've got a special guest, Mike, from New Nation.
Yeah, the New Nation.
The New Nation.
Yeah.
We're here to have a conversation. I have no notes, no agenda. Just want to chat. And wow, we got into the weeds before we started filming. We have a lot of similarities and know a lot of people I had no clue that you knew. But yeah. So as I was saying before, I said let me save it for the show. my old co-host, we were in this ratchet house down the street that I owned with another business that I'm involved in. And when we bought the house in 2018, we walk in, we go to the agent. It's this used to be like gunshots every day.
Yeah.
Just toxic waste part of town.
Don't doubt it.
Yeah. And so we go to this house, and this like African Muslim opens the door, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "Come in." And his wife's like cowered in the corner with a hijab on with all these little kids. And we're looking around, and we're like, all right, we'll take it. It's like a Habitat for Humanity house. This house was. But I'm a noticer, and I noticed this little flag on the chandelier, and it was it was very African. It had like a star on it, but I'm an amateur vexologist or whatever they're called. I love looking at flags. I like knowing flags. I had never seen this flag, so I Google it. We close on the house, and I Google it, and it's a rogue state out of Africa.
Really?
Yeah, and of course he's in Nashville for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But when we went to renovate the house, like throw lipstick on it, I went to the master bedroom, as they say now, primary bedroom. The doorknob was flipped to lock someone in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was going on in there?
A lot of tequila.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A lot of non-halal things, I would imagine. So we had our priest come and bless it.
That's good. That's good.
Never had anything spooky other than gunshots in the alley and everything about that.
I live in a generally safe area, an HOA that I'm not a part of because I rent the house. But there's the gunshot every now and then, but that's more people shooting stop signs and things like that, because even though we're on an HOA, there are several properties around us that, these people have like 2 to 3 acres. They have plenty of space, so they'll shoot every now and then.
And it's the South.
And it is the South.
Yeah.
That's
have you lived in the South before?
No. This is my first run.
Yeah, it's great. So you lived in New York primarily before this?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
New York.
Yeah, New York's interesting. I was at a wedding like 5 years ago. Everything's 5 years ago now. That's the Seinfeld bit. But and this girl came down, the family from her. I was at a wedding in Nashville, Belmead, and she's like, "Oh, Nashville's so provincial." She'd moved off and been there for like a decade now. And I go, "Oh, is it? Like, what do you think this is, Home Alone?" Mm-hmm. Like, you think, do you have to go to Bergdorf Goodman to get anything anymore? Like, you can get it shipped. We have Korean barbecue, and we have Whole Foods.
Right.
What, do you go to the Met every day?
Exactly.
They don't go to any. She's like, well, I'm like, do you date anybody? She's like, well, no, I'm working a lot. And I'm like, what do you do? She's like in marketing for some startup shit. And I'm like, okay, well, we're having a great time here with guns and taxes that are great, and we don't have to sit on the stinky subway all the time.
No, the mystique of New York wears off after about a year and a half, 2 years. This is New York City that we're talking about too, just so that your audience is aware. I grew up on Long Island, so my adolescent weekends were spent in New York. We take the train and we go skateboarding in New York City, Manhattan, and in Brooklyn. But I lived in Brooklyn for about 5 years. And I worked in Manhattan as well for a little bit. This was more recently. But, when you get on the subway every day and there's just some guy who's ready to stab you just for looking at him, just for looking up, and you just happen to lock eyes, and there's some crazy Puerto Rican on the subway who's willing to stab you for that, it gets kind of old. And the same thing happens just on the street anywhere in New York City. The one thing that I do miss is maybe the variety in the food and in the restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, I think New York City is not a must, but I think it's probably a valuable life lesson if you live there for a year. I think that's cool because you do get to experience a lot of real life, but also a lot of, I would say, interesting culture. I mean, the museums and the Broadway scene there, Times Square, is kind of interesting. You don't really spend a lot of time there.
Right.
But it's nice for a year. But then after that, I've said this, and I used to get into like a big row with the former boss of mine who we agreed on a lot of things politically. But he was so heels dug into the idea of living in Manhattan where it was very romantic. I was like, New York City is a scam. Living here is a scam.
Yeah.
It's overpriced.
Yep.
People they brag about their 900 square foot apartments that they're paying $3,000 a month for because they get to live in New York City. And like you were saying, oh yeah, how often are you going to the Guggenheim?
Yeah.
Really? Like
I took my kids to LA right like only the Asians, well they always wear masks. But it was literally January of 2020.
Yeah.
I was a godfather for a child out there. And we go to Santa Monica, and we stayed downtown Santa Monica. My oldest daughter, we're flying into LA, and she's like, "Whoa, this city's so big." I was like, "It's one of the biggest cities in the world." And she's like, "Wow." And
LA
I'm like,
County's huge.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Wow, yeah, it's crazy." So we stay in downtown Santa Monica, and we're going to walk to the pier. And my kid's having to jump. I was like, "You need to step over. Don't splash in that." It's like piss streams.
Yeah.
Just on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And like as a single guy, like, yeah, I like the gritty Vice energy.
Of course. Right.
know?
Yes.
I mean, my old buddy, my old late friend, he loved Detroit because you could do whatever you want in Detroit.
Of course. Yeah.
But I always tell this to dads who are just having kids. Like, you think you're right wing?
Yeah.
Just wait.
Wait till you have kids.
Wait until that baby comes out.
Yeah.
You're going to turn into Franco.
Yeah.
Like you think you're like, oh yeah, you love racist Twitter now, like
it's the only natural end, I think.
Yeah, it's so when I became a dad in 2014, I was still like 1 foot in this like left wing kind of DIY punk, art collective kind of world here in Nashville, but I was already getting catechized and like I'd just become Catholic right before my oldest was born, but like 2 years prior I was getting out of that. I mean, Vice sent down, like, we had a little scene here, and Vice like did a piece on it and all that. It was fun.
Really?
Yeah, it was really fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that link somewhere still in existence?
I have
Can
no
I go
idea.
look it up?
You might be able
Okay.
to. But like the bunch of bands came out of it that are somewhat popular now. But
Oh, interesting.
and I played in bands and all that. But when I had a kid, I was like, wait a minute. I'm hearing the rumblings of the transgender stuff because I studied sociology and philosophy in college, and that was like whispered in the halls there. But now it's household name, and it's astonishing to me that that's the case now because it was such a freak thing then. But now with kids, you're like, all right, no degeneracy whatsoever. Like, now my kids have excellent musical taste,
Right.
and they're very cultured kids, and like we. My wife is, hipster and all that. And like, we're very cultured and all that in some respects, but it's not funny. I was just on this podcast right before this, and it was this boomer was telling me, he's like, it's not fun anymore. It used to be like you go out and party and you have fun and you love your friends and your scene and all that. And now it's not fun. Like the scenes are still going. I still keep in contact with some of these people. And I'm making music, and that's why I'm excited about Catholic Palooza, because it's like I can see the fest cultivating an alt Catholic niche that's needed.
Right.
Yeah. It's got all these guys on Twitter, like following like Popehead and like all these like Luther Punisher, 1488, or whatever, and it's like. They're making music and maybe they're into like, post new wave and whatever, like funky music, but there's no outlet. All you have is CCM and it's cringe.
Yeah.
Like it's cringe. That's why I started the podcast, because I was like, all right, well, there's got to be
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I figure we're probably older too, right? We're a little bit older.
I'll be
but
38 on the 20th.
I'll be 40 later this year. But what I do like, as far as like the Catholic, I like to call them artists, I guess, but there are a bunch of Catholic Instagrams that I follow. I think one is Wafers. So Wafers 3D, like, just makes really cool.
He's the one who
cool
did
stuff.
Catholic Palooza.
Okay,
he
yeah.
rounded that up.
Like, and there are a lot of these guys who do very. I don't know what if I were to assign their art like a music genre, like very like dream wavy kind of stuff that I really like, and I think that's starting to get more prevalent and more popular as we go along. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. This is like one of the things that I don't call myself a conservative anymore.
Yeah,
because conservatives, I feel now, they don't really, especially like the Zoomer conservatives, and maybe a little bit more with the millennial ones, but I don't think that they understand art the way we do. Guys who don't necessarily come from a more, I don't know, liberal background or leftist background, but because we are either in punk scenes, skaters, even hip hop, but we understand art and we understand culture.
Right.
So when there are people who are talking about, let's say, film, because I write, there are people who talk about film and not having enough conservative values, and I'm like, okay, are you talking about maybe too much gratuitous sex in a movie just for the fact of having gratuitous sex? Like, I understand that, right? But like, if the scene, they did this for Oppenheimer. They were like, oh, there was just too much sex in it all the time, and it wasn't needed. I was like, well, I think the sex scenes in there served the plot. They weren't overly gratuitous. They didn't last too long.
Right.
But
I don't know, man. When I watched Oppenheimer, I watched it with a buddy of mine who I'm trying to get back into the church. And when the nips hit, I was like, yo, please. Like, because I'm like Mike Pence now with Cuss to the Eyes. Like, I'm like, yo, I can't even talk to women.
In a lot of movies, it's overly done, and it's done for no absolute reason, right? Like this guy in that scene, I think, what was it with Florence Pugh when when he gives the Bhagavad Gita line, "I am now become death," right? It happens because they met. I guess they like consummated their non-marriage that night, right? They fornicated, right? Like, and she notices the book on the corner, and she's like, and they start talking about it, right? If it was just the sex, just to show sex, then it wouldn't have made any sense. But it served the plot, right? But even now, we'll watch some rom-com, or we'll watch some movie that the critics are really loving, and I'll be like, I'll look to my wife who's watching it with me and be like, why are they putting this in there? Like, this makes me feel weird.
Yeah, it's like when you're watching a movie with your parents.
Right. And you're just...
And like the sex scene comes on and you're like, we're all adults here now.
Yeah.
Or like even as a teenager, you're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I've got a huge boner. Like, it's fine,
Dude, I remember this like it was yesterday. I was maybe my first serious girlfriend. We were at her house with her parents, and we were watching maybe something like Grey's Anatomy, or maybe something like House, or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it had to do with someone poking holes in a condom, and they were talking about it because a pregnancy happened, and she thought she was being safe.
Right.
And then her father looked at me and was like, "Got to look out for that kind of stuff." And I was just like, "You're not my dad. This is kind of weird. I get it. You're another man, but my girlfriend and her mom are right here.
Yeah,
we're all watching this together."
Yeah,
I don't know why I thought of this story, but it's just like
because he's breaching the fornication like Rubicon there.
Right.
Hold on. Pause. Is the audio coming through OBS? I just want to make sure, because if the TV's not working here, we'll just do a jump cut. Okay. It's tracking on OBS. Okay.
And it's recording, hopefully.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I want to make sure it's recording.
Don't jump cut. Leave it in.
Okay, I'll leave it in. Yeah, I feel like when I was watching Oppenheimer, I'm like, all right, so I'm watching this communist Jew physicist guy, who I am just like, all right, who, by the way, I'm kind of pilled that on nukes that they're just Vedic weapons, like it's Vedic alchemy.
Well, describe what you mean by Vedic.
So
I'm not smart.
Okay, so like India Today, they're like New York Times or whatever. Hello, buddy.
Right.
Which is
right.
They posted a thing in 2008 where they're like, well, the atom bomb is actually deeply influenced by Hinduism.
Oh, okay.
Because Oppenheimer was obsessed with Hinduism.
Right.
And at CERN, they have a humongous Shiva statue.
Do they really?
Yeah, it's their centerpiece at CERN, which is like the big,
the Hadron Collider.
The Hadron Collider and all that. That's their biggest statue in their courtyard.
Really?
And so, and in the lines, I am become death, like the full passage from the Vedic text. So the Veda is the
Bhagavad Gita, right? Like, so that, does that
the Vedic texts are their scriptures,
right?
Which the Bhagavad Gita is one. And
okay.
so, I think it's Shiva who's saying like, I have become like a million suns.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
And like it's just kind of the way that the passage. If he could pull it up on this screen, we'd read it, but he could add it in post.
Oh, I see it. Okay, so I see that.
Yeah,
statue.
that's the statue at CERN, and there was a freaky weird.
That was also the statue in the movie Help, the Beatles movie Help.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they were all into that.
At the beginning, yeah. Well, that was George.
Yeah. I mean that it's all Alan Watts. Okay.
Right.
You know Alan Watts.
I was just talking about him with a coworker yesterday.
Like he took, because back before Alan Watts did his Inner Asian Studies Institute or whatever, which Seraphim Rose, the Eastern, that's how he got into Orthodoxy. But anyway, that Buddhism was and Hinduism were like brown people religions, right? Like the weird shop owner has the dot, and then the Laotians down the street are Buddhists,
right?
But they like have a little Buddha statue with incense. Now the like green drink, yoga pant, wellness, stuff that all came from Alan Watts,
right? Oh, did it?
Yeah, I mean he's the one who sanitized Buddhism.
I see.
For the West,
right? Not necessarily commercialized it, but I like the word sanitized.
Oh, he sanitized.
He made it mainstream. He made it cool.
Yeah, and as people were disaffected by Protestantism and I guess the Catholicism as well in the 60s, and everything was revolutionary. I mean, that's perfect time. He was doing stuff in the 50s.
Dick Halpert shirts, man.
Dick Halpert, I don't know that.
He died. Russell Brand loved him. Which we can talk about Russell Brand later. But who's the guy? Not Alan Watts, but his contemporary. He's the guy that was distributing LSD. At Harvard.
Ken Kesey or Dennis.
No, not Leary. Or,
yeah, that's Kenneth.
The guy with the beard. This is like I'd read his books, and boy, we might have to do a jump cut just so that we can look at this guy.
We are.
What's his
Timothy
name?
Leary?
No, Timothy Leary's like partner.
I don't know.
So his name is, I think his real name is Richard Halpert, but he's Ram Dass.
Oh my gosh.
Ram Dass. I had t-shirts of Ram Dass. I had like online ceramic shirts of like Ram Dass quotes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I met my wife, we were both kind of this is a lie. We both weren't. She was kind of into like the Alan Watts, the Ram Dass stuff. I don't think on a spiritual level, but just kind of like a surface level. Like, hey, these guys say pretty interesting things.
Right.
And when we got together, I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, like meditation seemed interesting. Transcendental meditation. Obviously, Russell Brand's talking about that stuff. And then after a while, when I came back to Catholicism, I was like, yeah, that stuff's a whole lot of garbage.
Yeah. It's not,
but it's not that that it can't be used positively for people. But I think what would be great is the ultimate end. Okay, so let's say you start in Eastern mysticism and then you eventually find yourself in the church. I think.
Yeah, I was at a Catholic party at an apartment in off West End, and we were down in the courtyard ripping cigs and laughing, and this guy who was a neighbor of the host. He comes down and he's like, "Was this like some sort of Catholic party?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You guys still exist?" I was like, "We're not going anywhere, bro. There's like 1 billion of us, dude."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, but I mean like young people." I was like, "Ah, nah, man. We're gonna outbreed and outcreed you."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you are. What are you? And he's like, "Well, I do a lot of like mindfulness."
Oh, geez, nice.
And I was like, "Okay, how's that going? You know, how's your life?"
Yeah.
He's like, "It's still kind of tough and whatever." And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Man, and then I was like, "Okay, cool." And then my buddy was like talking about the rosary or something. He's like, "Tell me why I should pray the rosary." I was like, "I'll give you a BuzzFeed listicle."
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, it's meditative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meditation.
Right.
Number 2, it's got the mantra thing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's repetitive.
Yeah.
Number 3, it's actually efficacious. So God likes it.
Yeah.
And Our Lady likes it.
Oh, yeah.
And so you get grace that you can actually feel. If we're going to go there, you can feel better.
Oh, yeah.
You can notice that you're able to stop doing bad things by graces that you get from the rosary. And he's like, huh. And then he's like, what about slavery? And I'm like,
how'd you arrive there?
he asked. I mean, it's just like the classic, like, what, the church had slaves or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm like,
so
yeah,
did
dude.
the Hindus and the Buddhists.
Yes.
And literally everybody in human existence.
Yeah, and now the slavery is just a euphemism, like it's been euphemized, whatever. It's a euphemism now, like it's been laundered.
Yeah.
Like we have slavery still. It's just called opening the border all the way, right?
Yeah.
Like, who will clean our toilets? It's like the
Right,
what's
right.
her name?
Ozzy
Ozzy Osbourne's
yes.
daughter.
Whatever her name, not
Yeah.
Sharon, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems to me that they're grasping, and the Eastern thing. It's very hip. It's very urban. It's very intellectual.
It's seductive.
It is seductive because it's not, because there's no sexual prohibitions.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that people aren't Catholic who have looked into it and are like resisting the known truth. I'm convinced that it's almost always having to do with sex. Like people are like, oh, Mary, like, I don't know about Mary. Please.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. That's
Do you think a lot of Protestants feel that way, or do you think people who are outside of Christianity feel that way?
I think both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like Protestants, after the Lambeth Conference in 1930 with the Episcopalians, when they okayed birth control for wives who were in danger of dying if they got pregnant,
Right.
they cracked that door, and then it got kicked wide open because it's not in Scripture outside of Onan, which can be easily Luthered away as like, well, he just wasn't following God's will there. Well, both. He was supposed to impregnate his sister-in-law or whatever, but then he also spilled his seed on the ground. They made a point to write that down. There's something going on with Onanism. Like,
Right.
pulling out's not cool. And so, like, but now it's like, I mean, it's the I don't know where you're at.
I had E. Michael Jones on the show.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
So EMJ wrote in, I saw an interview with him. I interviewed him.
Yeah.
2021.
That was wild.
What?
My interview.
Oh,
with
indeed.
Eli coming on the show.
So here's how my E. Michael Jones interview went. We didn't publish it because I was getting like mega Jew-pilled like on live.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? Wait a minute. Hold on. And I'm looking over at my co-host and I'm like, what the I didn't know he was the Jew guy.
Yeah.
I didn't.
No. I told my dad listens to a lot of my shows, and I was like, hey, did you listen to the last episode? Yeah, I turned it off about halfway through. He's a big anti-Semite, and my dad, God love him, he's a boomer, but he comes from a Jewish family. He's never been bar mitzvahed or anything like that.
Right.
Never been in a
Like ethnically.
temple if he
Yeah.
didn't have to be. Yeah, and I still fight back against the ethno-Jewish label, even though E. Michael Jones was like, yeah, an ethnic Jew is a real thing. However, you're not Jewish because your mother's Catholic. And I was like, see, if E. Michael Jones tells me I'm Catholic and not an ethnic Jew, then, thumbs up.
He
But-
passed the
but-
Dr. Jones test.
No, but I said that to him. I was like, oh, hello, Dr. Jones. And I don't think he got it.
No.
But
he's a Philly boomer.
he
Look, I hope
is,
to
yeah.
interview him again because I'd love to ask him some more questions.
I'd love to get a second guest on there though with him, just
Yeah.
to maybe kind of go back and forth with him.
I mean, I'll do it.
He was he was railing against like Taylor Marshall. He was railing
Oh.
against Timothy Gordon.
Look. When we interviewed him at the very end, I was like, all right, I got two questions. Why don't you go to Latin Mass? Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, it's just a big to
Did
do
he say
about
it's
nothing.
it's a doorway outside of the church?
No, he didn't say that. And
Okay.
then he was like, and I was like, and second, aren't we trying to convert Jews?
That's what he said.
I said that.
Oh,
to
right.
him.
Okay.
And I was like, I mean, aren't we trying to convert Jews? Like, if I was just like the black crime stats guy
Yeah.
with no like, I mean, he's not just the Jew guy. I mean, he's not. I've read a few of his books, and the most interesting thing about E. Michael Jones is that. So I'm reading Jewish Revolutionary Spirit right now,
Okay.
which is one of his it's his magnum opus on the Jews. It's 3 volumes. It's huge. He talks unlike he writes. He
Really?
writes like
Like an academic.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. Now, when I'm at a mixed company party, I'm not going to be talking like you and I are necessarily with fresh people.
Right.
There's going to be some more gentility to it.
Right.
And
a little bit of a curtain that's up.
Yeah. I mean, it just, sure.
but not.
Yeah. But it's weird because, like, you know, I'm like, hey, tell me about, thanks for coming on the show. He's like, of course. I was like, tell me about, what was it? The Degenerate Moderns or whatever the book was. And he's like, no, the libido one, Libido Dominandi.
Oh, yeah.
The one about
the sexual revolution.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm expecting him to, because I'd seen interviews with him.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you know, the transient, this was why I even went into this, is because he said, and I think it's true, he's like, what's the hallmark of the homosexual subculture? Transient sterile relationships. Okay. And what do we see now? We have Tinder. We have transient sterile relationships as a result of contraception. And I'm like, cool, I want to talk to this guy.
Right.
Dude, I'm like, tell me about your book. He's like, okay, so in 1967,
yeah,
the Jews were at war with the Palestinians. The Jews had them
leaflets
under sniper fire.
Yeah.
And the Palestinians could not leave their homes. And I'm literally like, okay. It's like when Tucker's interviewing Putin.
Oh, yeah.
Putin's like,
well,
let me tell you about
to 983.
the Hussars,
right.
You know, the winged Hussars.
I brought E. Michael Jones on to talk more about the Holocaust, which was probably
not
the smartest thing to do in retrospect. but so we went through the Holocaust because I had heard him on a Twitter space, and I was like, this is really interesting.
Yeah,
he's talking about the numbers, and he's bringing up he's like, if you ask ChatGPT, how long would it take to cremate 6 million bodies? It would take 83 years. And I'm like, oh, okay. That I was like, let me get him on the show and actually talk about this, right? Yeah. So I brought him on, and he was echoing a lot of that, but he was talking mainly about like the propaganda efforts of the West, like England and America during the Holocaust.
Right.
That was interesting, but because I've always thought, you know, that you're taught in grammar school, you're taught in high school that there's a specific story that happened, and it happened this way. There's no nuance, and there's no digging any deeper. Mm-hmm. So talking to him, I really enjoyed it. I don't know if, you know, I'd invite him to the dinner parties. There's no.
That's what I'm saying. Like, look, he's not going to watch this. Okay, maybe he will. You know what? Maybe he will. Hey,
big probability he doesn't, but if he does,
hey, if you watch this, I do want to talk to you again. But here's the thing. And it's so funny. I'm not being two-faced. I was just on this other podcast with a boomer, and I'm like, look, the boomers get a bad rap. They're the glue that's holding this all together right now. Like,
you think so?
Yes, dude. When the boomer, like, everyone's like, boomers, they've ruined everything. They bought their house for 3 blueberries and, you know, whatever. Dude, when the boomers are gone, you think we have a competency crisis now? Just economically?
It might get bad.
It's toast, dude. Like, who's going to go make sure that the NES, like, that the electric company's working? Like, it's boomers who are like, yep, hate my wife. I bought my house for 3 blueberries, and I'm going to go make sure the power company works.
The only thing that I push back on a little bit with that is that they don't at least acknowledge that the economic times are quite different, and the wealth to the income to cost of housing ratio has like drastically increased by like 7 times.
Yeah, they're blind to that.
Where they're just like, well, if you just work hard, man, you should be able to buy a house. And it's like, hey, dude, I have 3 jobs, and all the houses where I live and want to buy are still way out of my budget. And I'm sorry, I'm a loser, but
yeah. No, I agree. They have some situational blindness, and I think we're seeing the millennials now. The millennials now are getting lambasted. They're like, oh, what's your Harry Potter house? You've seen the TikTok Zoomers making fun of millennials. Have you seen these clips?
Our TikToks kept on getting banned, our accounts.
Or whatever. So whatever. I'm seeing it on Instagram.
Like adult Disney people, like that kind of thing?
They're just making fun of millennials.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely...
Oh, it's boomers making fun of millennials.
No, it's Zoomers making fun of millennials.
Okay.
And I love it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you have a side part? Wow. Are you a Hufflepuff? You know? Like, they're just like reaming, and they're making fun of our movies and the way it's funny. But like, we will be boomers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We will be boomers. And to Gen Alpha, my daughter's Gen Alpha and all that. All that to say, Jones, he's a boomer.
Yeah.
And the way he's just like, all right, I'm from Philadelphia and I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Like, sorry if your feelings get hurt and I'm on a warpath. He's on a warpath.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, so I asked him, like, how many Jews have you converted? He's like,
Right.
oh, like 3. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
That's still pretty good. Like,
That's okay.
I'm kind of happy with that. If I go down with that number, that's pretty
yeah,
good.
3 is pretty good.
I'm working on my dad still.
Like, I mean, I've read Justin Martyr's dialogue with Trypho, whatever we say it, Trypho the Jew, and I'm reading it and I'm thinking it's going to be some like E. Michael Jones.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's like, no, you're wrong. Like, Justin Martyr's arguing with this Jew, and like if you haven't read Justin Martyr, it's like reading something someone would write now. It's really, really good. He's a philosopher, and it's incredible. His appeal to the Roman Senate is incredible. But anyway, and then I read St. John Chrysostom's Adversos Judaeos, which is against the Jews. It's his homilies he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading it, and I'm thinking it's going to be like crazy.
Yeah.
You know? No, he's like, just stop going to the synagogues, guys. What are you doing? They don't have God there.
Yeah.
Like, stop.
Yeah.
They do all sorts of depraved things. It's weird. They're weird. Don't go to their celebrations. They're not the new Israel. We are. Stop.
Yeah.
You know? And he uses some choice words, but it's nothing like, I don't know. It's almost like one of my main things that I've been trying to figure out as a Catholic man, as a white Catholic man in the South and everything, is what is a charitable ethnos look like, right? So we have ethos, we've got, you know, mythos and all that, but everyone has an ethnos, right? So like blacks in America have an obvious ethnos, right? What's up, brother? You know, they don't know each other.
Right.
It's good, you know. And that happens like when I meet a Catholic, I'm like, oh, what's up, dude? How's it going?
Yeah.
Like at a party. Oh, where do you go? Where are you at? Like, where do you go to mass and all that? But whites have been stripped of this ethnos in large part. And I'm like, it's that old meme. It's like when the 5 stages of white anger. It's like, hey, buddy, watch out. You know, now listen up, mister.
Right,
and then
right.
the 5th one is goose stepping, you know, world domination, which is funny because it's true. And I'm as a Catholic, I've been researching like, all right, what is a healthy ethnos? Because you have the gay race communism that's like everywhere. It's in the water. It's the corporate Memphis, you know, Kroger ads to, you know, whatever you want, like the interracial ads on that are overwhelming on TV. And the church has always been cool with interracial marriage. And it's like, yeah, it's fine. It's really small minority, but like, why is it being pumped?
Right.
You know, and there might be comments like, name them. It's the Jews.
Right.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm kind of with Gavin on this. Like, it almost becomes a we was Kangs, kind of like, or like Jared Taylor talks about this. Like, if it rains on my birthday, it's the Jews.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but where's the white ethnos that's going to go, all right, I'm not going to mess with the Jewish psyop or whatever, but I'm not going to make it the whole focus of my whole life.
Well, they have their own ethnos, right?
The Jews?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, they do. Yeah.
And they should.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And so, but the church is in such a state of disarray. Like if we had a young pope, right? One of his encyclicals would be, all right, race.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think it needs to be addressed because the crop of Zoomers coming up now who are on racist Twitter all day, you know, watching white watch and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and I follow all these things.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's their life and they don't know anybody. They don't know any Jews. This is your point you were making earlier. Like as elder millennials, I don't know what you are. I mean, you are like the most elder of millennials, if not the youngest Gen X.
Well, yeah, I'm the year after, I guess, the millennials started, 83, so I'm 84.
Right. We know people.
Yeah.
Like you grew up in New York.
I grew, yeah, that's what it is. And I mean, I come from a mixed marriage. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, he was cool for a second. But, you know, my mom's from Central America. My dad, his family goes back to Eastern Europe. But growing up with that sort of family opens you up to at least, I guess, being able to navigate cultures a little bit better. Especially that's why I say go to New York, live there for a year, just so that without getting killed, just to see how cultures interact with each other and interact with themselves. And I'm on, but though I've been getting radicalized more on Twitter, and I should probably delete it just because I'm kind of black-pilled a lot. I'm just like, I don't really see any sort of optimism or anything in it, especially with a lot of like the race realism stuff. I'm like, I'm noticing more and more.
Yeah,
every
you're a
day,
noticer,
and I don't like it.
Well, that's why I started the show originally, because there's two paths for the Zoomer right. You have the Nazi path, and then you have the Catholic path.
Yeah.
And like the Nazi path is going down the Nazi path.
Yeah.
And you might not necessarily join the neo-Nazis, right? But you're going to be sitting around loathing people.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what I was seeing in the Catholic churches, where people are sitting around. Now I'll make jokes like that politician in Amsterdam or wherever got arrested over the weekend.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's like last week for his racist memes. I'd get arrested.
Right.
Okay. And I was just telling these guys, and you're from New York. These guys were from Chicago. I said, in the North, like everyone's theoretically non-racist, but in reality, they're like, not messing with that.
Right.
Like, no. And down here, everyone's theoretically racist, and they are. But in reality, like I go to the supermarket and the black lady's like, "What's up, baby?" Yeah. I'm like, "You have a good Christmas?"
Hey,
She's like, "Yeah, I had a good Christmas. My kids came home." And I'm like, "What'd y'all do?" Like, we just talk in the checkout line.
All the time. It happens all the time.
So, but there's a comfortability, like it's comfortable down here in that respect. Like there's tension in some of the cities. Like Memphis has a huge racial tension problem.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
70% black, 30% white, and like it's not fun. But Nashville's 25% black or so, 22%, and like 60% white. And so like it's not as tense there because it gets absorbed.
Right.
But nonetheless, like Catholics, what does a Catholic ethnos look like that's charitable? Because if you have race realism, if you have Jew noticing, if you have whatever it is without charity, a dimension of charity, and like are you loathing people, right?
Right.
As scum?
Yeah.
Or are you noticing things that you can make prudential judgments about in your everyday life and your life trajectory that doesn't lead you to loathe people?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I've been looking at. And my friend sent me this great. We'll put it in the show notes and we'll put it on in post. But there's this great letter written in the 60s by this priest. I think he was a Jesuit too, but like an old school Jesuit. And he breaks down ethnos. And it's like, yeah, God willed talk about God willing the diversity of religions, as Pope Francis said. Of course, the passive will he meant. Of course, they exist.
Yeah.
So nothing exists apart from God. But, God willed the different ethnic groups, and they have their own characteristics. Yeah, it's psycho-spiritual, bio-spiritual. Sure, we can talk about IQ tests and all that noticing and all that. It's fine. Cool. The average IQ of Black Americans is 85. Okay, that's shocking. So what are you going to do with it?
Right.
You know, what do you loathe these people now? Yeah. I mean, they're here. You're not the king. Okay.
What we need more African Catholics.
Yeah, I mean, I made a meme in 2020. Did you see the I'll put it in the thing, but did you see the clip of the South African armored truck drivers?
Oh yeah. All right,
so I made a meme
when they're evading, yeah.
And I was like, when the Catholic neo-reactionary and the African monarchists have to escape the FEMA camp. You know, like at the end of the day, like most Catholics who are like neo-reactionary, like race realist guys, we would love for Cardinal Sarah to be the Pope.
Right. Yeah. I've thought about that. And what I think is for me is like, I just want everybody to be Catholic. I mean, I don't care what you look like or where you come from. I'd like you to be Catholic.
Oh, indeed.
You know?
Yeah.
But I mean,
I interviewed a black guy at the park the other day. We're gonna put that. I think we'll put that show up today or tomorrow. But he's like, he was a dude who was talking about all this Buddhist stuff. And his blunt wrappers were like falling out of his pocket, and like some like esoteric things, saying like Buddhist mantras as the birds flew out of the pond. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, this guy looks like Malcolm X. Like he literally is like light skin, like kind of red in his beard. And I'm like, yo, this guy is not in my zone, right?
Right.
I mean, I might see him like out and about, but he's not my zone. He's not my sphere. But I want him to be Catholic, so I told him about confession.
Yeah.
I was like, have you ever told another man the craziest shit you've ever done in your life? And he's like, no. And I was like, you should try it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think everyone, but what happens is when we say things like, I want everyone to be Catholic, right? I want everybody to be Catholic too. And I think people preferring their own people is fine.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And like, that's even a good thing. Like the races are good.
Well, it's like what Nick said. I mean, Nick Fuentes said, he's like, I just want my kids to look like me. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Well, most do.
Right.
That's why most marry within their race.
Right.
And we have good family friends that are in mixed race marriages, and like, it's not like a point of contention.
Well, I have two brothers, right? Mm-hmm. All three of us, we come from the same. We all have the same parents, so we have mixed parents, right?
Right.
We've all.
You mean you look Irish, dude?
Yeah. No, I know.
Was your mom like a white Central American?
No, she no.
Like Mayan
yeah,
looking?
like Mayan Salvadorian. Yeah. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was mostly, I guess, like dad's genetics, but we've all gone on to marry white girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I've dated very briefly Asians. Mm-hmm. I kissed a black girl once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like one of those subconscious things where it's like when I see kids, like I want them to look like me. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we do.
My daughters look exactly like me, so we'll see how it turns out.
Okay.
But it's so funny. And my son looks like my wife, which is so funny.
Oh, really?
He's got big blue eyes. He burns in the sun all the time.
Yeah.
My other kids, my oldest is like an Amazonian. She just will swim for 10 hours and
But it's like, but it's cool because when we talk about how we wanting people to be Catholic, like I came back to the church first, and I brought my wife with me, who we both went to the same, Catholic schools and Catholic high school, and then we both came back to the church together. Though I think I had maybe a little bit of a head start on her. But I'm like, that's cool, man. Like we're reverting. Like I'm helping someone revert.
Oh, it's totally
and I'm
cool.
getting, the show that I do. Even though I make memes and I bring on people to talk, and even though I don't want to call myself as serious as a lot of the other Catholic influencers because I'm not all that smart. I talk about things more on a spiritual level than I do, like, I guess, a theological level. But I've gotten DMs from people like, "Hey, I'm entering RCIA partly because of you."
Yeah.
Or, "Hey, me and my
too.
yeah, like it
cool.
blows my mind."
Yeah.
Because I'm being treated like like an Aquinas or something like that. I'm giving maybe myself a little bit more credit, but to help somebody
I always say
convert,
I'm half smart, half retarded.
Yeah, that's me.
I mean, I know a bunch of stuff, but I'm also not the most brilliant guy.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like, my eyes glaze over when I'm reading too heady of material. Even some of the mystics, I'm like, okay, like St. John of God and St. John of the Cross.
I've never heard of St. John of God.
Yeah, St. John of the Cross. I'll read his poetry and stuff, and I'm like, I know it's kind of like Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I'm going on the record here, and it may alienate a lot of people. I'm not a huge fan.
Shakespeare?
Yeah, I read
it's
it.
Tough. It's just tough to read.
That's what I'm saying.
It's tough to read. There should be an AI that breaks down and puts it in the vernacular, which I'm sure if you tried to, you'd be like, "Hey, can you translate Twelfth Night into the vernacular?"
Dumb guy language that for me,
yeah.
Please. Because I remember being in high school, and even like Brothers Karamazov. Like, how many Russian nicknames do I have to memorize?
It's tough.
It's like learning how to play Settlers of Catan or some sort of board game when you're at a dinner party. You're like, I hate it because I'm like, I want to talk. I don't want to have to memorize these rules and then do the board game. Like I got a bunch of friends who like board games.
Yeah, I can play Monopoly for an hour and then I'm done.
Yeah, and I can even play it for a long time, but I don't want to have to onboard.
I can't. Yeah.
The game.
Yeah.
I don't want to onboard all these crazy nicknames and then have to transport myself back into whatever 19th century Russia.
See, this is why I like film. I'm very deep into film. It's tough for me to read because I get distracted. Like I've got 6 books open right now and only like 3 chapters in each because I can't sit down and finish a book. Yeah. You know, and the one thing that I am listening to is funny enough, like this 40-part series on Hitler, which I don't know why I'm listening to it. I really don't. It's very interesting. And the other day I was talking to somebody about that movie Zone of Interest.
I haven't seen it.
The Jonathan Glazer movie, but about the Commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Hess.
Nope.
And
I'm not a movie guy.
I am a movie guy, but the whole idea is that the Commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Hess, had his house directly next to the camp, and it's this weird dichotomy of family life on this beautiful property with what's going on at Auschwitz right next door to it, and the way that they filmed it's awesome. But anyway, I'm looking into Rudolf Hess because I'm like, okay, because you know the podcast is like he meets Rudolf Hess, which we'll talk about him later. And I'm like, oh, okay, the Commandant of Auschwitz. Rudolf Hess on his deathbed after Nuremberg, basically saying, this is how many people we killed. This is what I did. I know what we were doing. I'm saying to myself, I put it on Twitter, Rudolf Hess in heaven?
Yeah.
Most likely in purgatory right now. Who knows?
He's purging.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably is. Hitler, not so much. But Hitler's in hell.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's the type of stuff when I'm talking about Catholicism that I get into that I really like. So a lot of people, when they talk about like, you know, St. John of the Cross and a lot of Aquinas and Summa stuff and Augustine, I'm like, yeah, I got the general gist, but I can't digest that stuff as easily as I can do like film and podcasts.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I was telling a Protestant at a silent retreat I went on at this Opus Dei retreat house. I'm not Opus Dei.
I like Opus. I think it's cool. I mean, just the name alone is
it's
like,
cool.
You know.
I don't like their logo. It's a little too like Novus Ordo lectern looking. It's the circle with the cross. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe that was hijacked.
The work of God.
Yeah.
That's
no, it's cool. St.
Cool.
Jose Maria Escriva's like his talk about not like dumb guy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You read The Way or The Forge or whatever, it's like these short little aphorisms, and you're like, okay.
Very, very digestible, I think.
Yeah, it's just like St. Alphonsus Liguori. Have you ever read any of him?
Know the name.
Dude.
Well, I have a screenplay where I quote St. Alphonsus Liguori talking about anger, and it's something that it's something about being angry at yourself for committing a fault is, I'm paraphrasing this, but it's counterproductive. There's no sense in being angry at yourself.
Yeah.
Just kind of move on from it.
Dwelling on it is definitely harmful.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a great tweet. It's one of it's maybe my favorite tweet of all time, and it was, I forget who did it, but it was like modern theologians, you know, and it was like, well, the Bezo hermeneutic continuity of the Lateran effects of blah blah blah, and then it's like St. Alphonsus Liguori. All right, here's how you keep demons out of your body and how you stay out of hell. Yeah. So St. Alphonsus Liguori wrote, he's excellent, and he's not, it sounds like a towering figure because he's doctor of the church, but you read him and you're like, oh, this is so easy to read. He's like me. Yeah, he wow, okay, I can get it. Now, his book on hell, or preparation for death, that'll make you not want to sin. Right. You know, because a lot of times I don't want to not sin. Mm-hmm. But you read that and you're like, oh, I should probably stop wanting to sin. Yeah, that's the problem that I have with a lot of social media Catholicism is in part that whole thing where using a lot of words I don't know, using or talking about these councils that are kind of like I've never would have heard of, you know, other than, you know, Council of Rome, Nicaea, or either the Vaticans or maybe Trent, right? Anything outside of that, I have no idea what they're about. I don't know. Then they get deep into like papal encyclicals, and then it's just like, you know, I always hear the word hermeneutics. I don't know what it means to this day. No idea. I don't. I don't care to look or to learn it. I don't either. If I'm getting into a scrap with a Protestant about something scriptural, I'll just go to CatholicAnswers.com, copy and paste it, and then put my own like POV into the response where it's like, oh, this guy wrote this. But I find that I think it's a lot of, that's my other problem is that a lot of us Catholics are kind of fighting with each other over who's smarter. And yeah, like, you guys got to give that up a little bit. Well, this is the problem with another reason I started this podcast is because I know. Do you go to Latin Mass? I go to Latin Novus Ordo actually. Okay, so I know we used to go to. I used to go to the TLM exclusively. Then a tornado hit our parish, and
I know which
COVID
parish you are.
hit.
Yeah, sure.
And then the men wouldn't get up for the pregnant ladies in the church because they don't know how to do. I guess they're Southern. They didn't get their Southern catechesis on how to.
Well,
behave.
you're that mass is now in a smaller place, so it's
right.
It's a
you got
lot
put in a
harder.
room. And look, I'm not dogging. I like the community. I love the people there.
Yeah.
I do. But I started because I noticed a lot of disturbing antisocial trends
Really?
within the trad world. I mean, and so one of the things if you've watched the show before, one of the things I used to say is like, listen, when you go on a date, do not bring up the Third Lateran Council ever.
This is what,
Don't bring it up.
were we talking about this?
No.
Okay.
Maybe in that chat.
We may have, because I was saying that I made the meme of like, hey guys, maybe avoid talking about avoid talking about religion deeply on the first date. Like,
Don't
girls
ever
don't
do
want
that. They don't want to do that.
But then I got flooded with comments. We talk about it like, yes, because you are both Catholic, so obviously it may come up. But when
Yeah.
you focus on it, like, find out where they want to travel to. Find out what they want to do with their lives.
Yeah.
Like,
What do you like?
yeah,
If they like the Lateran Council,
cool,
game on.
right?
Most women aren't like that.
No. It's
Look,
very
it's
weird.
a touch of the tism.
A little bit,
touch of
yes,
the tism
yes.
here. I mean,
Gen
Aquinas.
Z.
I pissed off some Dominican sisters one time. I was like, look, Aquinas, obviously,
A
touch
little
of the tism.
yeah, I think so.
A little high IQ, probably 160 IQ. Touch.
Yeah.
Once you get in those upper realms, the air gets thin.
Well,
okay?
also talking about the tism, I had a buddy reach out because he goes to a Latin mass, but he's like, hey, like we've had to move Latin masses twice now because after every service, my sister just keeps on getting hit on by these dudes who are unkempt, like not attractive, and I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, what are they doing? They're asking her out. I was like, guys, this is what you want to do, okay? If you see a girl at church, most likely it's a Catholic church. There's some sort of coffee and donuts after the service. Maybe there's some sort of social sort of get together after that. Introduce yourself. Stop right there.
Stop right there.
She's going to be there next week.
Yeah.
She makes eye contact with you. Then you can go over and talk. The
And
move, though, ballsy, of just going straight to the ask out, it's commendable, but it's dumb.
It's not going to work.
Don't do it.
Nah,
No.
the women are like, yo, chill.
Just leave me alone for a
Just
little
chill
bit.
for a second.
But you can pick up there. It's just there are ways to go
Yeah,
about it.
that's why. So I've talked about this ad nauseum on the old episodes that aren't on YouTube anymore.
Can we turn this air off? I'm freezing.
Are you freezing?
You got your rugby.
Yeah, I've got my rugby shirt on.
And also, I mean, my BMI might be a little bit too low.
Yeah,
so it's
mine.
probably,
I've got definitely some 10 years of dad weight, which begets dad strength.
yeah. It's also a common insult is when I'm talking about Catholicism. Other Catholics are like, "Do you need to lift more?" And I'm like, "Okay."
Look, a lot of people. You said people would bristle that you came from a mixed marriage. They come from divorce.
Yeah. Yeah, my
Okay.
parents are still together. It's been
Yeah,
like
your
35
parents are
years.
split. I'm not saying like, ooh, like you suck. What I'm
Well,
saying
they
is
know
like,
one of their patron saints is also from a mixed marriage as well and acknowledges it too.
yeah, it's like, guys, this is what I'm talking about. This ethnos that's untethered. It's this Nietzschean, like Bronze Age pervert stuff, right? Like you that's in the. It's not in the Hitler camp, but it's in the Nietzschean camp, which is Nietzscheanism is the foundation of Nazism. Like that's part of the foundations of it. And so you get into this Nietzschean right, and they're like, just lift. What's your post physique?
Yeah.
It's like, how about you get married?
Yeah, right.
Nick Fuentes, I'd love to talk to the guy. I'd hope to get an interview with him at some point because I want to talk to him. I met him once accidentally at Politicon here in Nashville. I walked up to get my wristband, and he was standing right next to me. He's very small, and I was like, "Hey, are you Nick?" He's like, "Yeah." And this is before he gotten huge.
Right.
In any case, I'd love to talk to him because he's on the forefront of the Zoomer right. Right? He is the Zoomer right.
Yeah. We've had him on our show.
And I think he's kicking the Overton window wide open in very useful ways. At the same time, like, dude, you could go marry lots of women.
I think so.
And at the end of the day, not getting married is effeminate. If you're not called to the priesthood, you're likely not called to be a celibate man. you're likely called to marriage, and you're all whacking off.
Well, I like the one.
Why?
There's a meme of him like on a night's body where he's like, "Sex is gay. If you're having sex, it's gay."
See, that kind of shit is like, and I look, I want to talk to him, and I do hate talking about like even Michael Jones away from him, but
yeah.
I saw a thing or a clip of him talking about that senator or representative from Alabama during the State of the Union who was hot.
Sure.
Like a hot mom,
Nick.
Yeah.
When
Nick was talking, and he's like, yeah, she's not bad. Let's see who she's married to. And it was this guy my size. Like
he was a former football player.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, I can't, I'm an incel. And like, he was being kind of self-effacing. And like, as he was critiquing the guy, I was like, you kind of are, dude.
Mm.
And like, that's called being a dork. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that energy. I want energy of like, all right, I might know a lot about Lateran 3.
Right.
But I don't want to be a dork.
Yeah.
I want to be, and yeah, I'm black-pilled about the Jewish inflation of our money and the psyops and all that. Yeah, get a job and go work a job.
Yeah.
And
Not Nick, you're just saying in general.
No, not
right,
Nick,
right,
but like
right.
like to his acolytes. Like, I want to see a study on the birth rate of his acolytes, of the people who follow him.
Oh, the Groypers?
Yeah, the Groypers. Like, I want to know the birth rates of the Groypers.
I love the Groypers. I don't have any problems with them.
No, I like the Groypers too.
I'm just saying.
But I do. Yeah. I like the Groypers.
Yeah.
And I've got a good friend who's a Groyper, and I like the Groypers. Again, I like what they're doing.
Right.
As far as kicking the Overton window open.
Yeah, I think that's a good message. I think they could get out there. I think they can date. I think they can get married. I think they can have families. But it might, I don't know if it's like an edgy thing to like say I'm not about that life, because what I want is, I've been talking about this for a while. I'm kind of tired of young conservative or even like Christian influencers who talk about marriage and who talk about family all the time, who are single and don't even attempt to date or to start families or anything like that. I'm kind of tired of it. People can talk about whatever they like. You know, I don't have to be from Sudan to talk about the Sudan is probably not a great place. Like, obviously, like I can do that, and I'm not saying that just because you don't have kids or a family doesn't mean you can't talk about the virtues of having a family or children. But it gets tiresome, like you said, after a certain point.
It's tiresome, man. Like, I was at a rosary that I hosted to get the pediatric transgender clinic shut down here, and this guy, I was like talking about my wife to somebody, and he starts giving me advice, and he's not married.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was dating anybody or whatever. He
like,
was
like a kid, kind of?
He was like 10 years younger than me.
Okay.
You know, and I'm like, and it was getting annoying. And he was he acted like he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, man, I stopped him.
No offense.
I go, dude, what you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Like, I appreciate the counsel, but you can't give away what you don't have. You know,
I'm even very reluctant to give people advice who do have kids, and they're looking to me for like, hey, dude, like I've got young kids. I don't want to give you advice on your 10-year-old, right? Like,
no. And I just got my daughter just turned 10, so I can't give too much advice about 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
I've got like 6 days of it so far.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to go tell someone what to do with a 14-year-old. I don't know anything about that.
No.
I'm still learning as I'm going. But I know what's gravely bad, and I know I do have practical wisdom.
I was once 14.
Yeah, I was once 14.
I can give you that perspective.
Like, that's a critique of non-married priests, right? Like, well, they don't know about marriage. Dude, they hear confessions all day. They grew up in a family.
Yeah.
They know.
Imagine that.
They know what's going on, and they're old. They have experience. They counsel couples. They do premarital counseling. All that.
Yeah. For a while, I sheepishly thought, you know, how can my priest relate to me being frustrated with my 3-year-old or acting out in anger towards her? Like, you know, he doesn't have kids.
No.
But
so that's my only critique, is that it's, you know, modernist this, modernist that, Americanism. We can go into all the sardonic critiques of our society, right? The Jews, whatever you want to talk about. Demographics is destiny, okay? Like that's not the whole dimension of anything, but we can outbreed and outcreed these people, and we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard. I know you want to live in New York or wherever you want to live, and like to maybe sound like a boomer, but at the end of the day, like, just find someone and get married. You're not gonna. Everyone's so pornified.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I watch stunning not 8s and 9s and 10s all day on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's not real.
It's not real. No.
When I stopped looking at porn in 2016 and whacking off, dude, all that faded away after about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I love my wife.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of this other stuff. And now I'm like, I know these hot women. I know some hot women. I've been around famous people, and like I know this stuff. Dude, they're boring.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not all boring. There's some hot women who aren't boring, but like you're pornified, and that's what I'm trying to get away from. Like the fight against modernity is not to give in to the effeminacy, and it's to lean into your actual vocation. Which is why if you're called to be a priest, go be a priest. This whole like I'm discerning.
I have someone who I'm talking to right now that is having that dilemma, right? Because the only reason is because he really wants a family. Like he's thought about it for a very long time. He's always seen himself having a family, having a wife and kids, but he feels like this pull to the priesthood. And I told him flat out, I was like, dude, I can't. It's almost irresponsible of me to give you any sort of opinion. I really don't want to, other than telling you that I love my family and I love what I've achieved through that. Yeah. And, through starting a family. Right. I'm not going to tell you should do it. I'm not going to tell you shouldn't do that.
Okay.
But
I will.
Yeah.
I will say this. If you are feeling a call to the priesthood, stop telling people you're discerning and go talk to your vocations director, and then go to seminary for 6 years and see if you want to do it. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Because we need more priests too.
We need more priests. And if you feel called to be married, you're not going to get a 9 unless you're a 9. I'm talking aggregate.
Yes.
Like you're not going to go get a 9 unless you're a 9. I'm sorry. Like
I told her. I think if people are watching this, if they're listening to it, I'm a 10. But if they're watching it, maybe a strong 6. Maybe is what I am. And I told my wife this. I was like, I married an 8. And I told him, like, you're an 8.
You told her, did she receive it?
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I'm not. My wife is the most blunt, real person. She's like, yeah, I'm not a 10. I'm never going to describe myself as a 10 because there are people like Margot Robbie who exist, and that would just be a lie. My wife is beautiful, and I say, hey, she's an 8. I punched up.
Great,
I really did. Right?
Yeah, my wife's beautiful, and like, but more important, like when you get a woman pregnant, their body changes. Yeah. They get older. They're not going to stay as youthful and vibrant.
I don't care. She still turns me on. My wife does.
Yeah,
and I love it.
Awesome.
All she has to do is walk by fully clothed, maybe wearing 8 layers, and I'm still like,
yeah, it's great. And that's the thing. I think people, and I know the critiques are that the women are terrible now, but that's the same critique the women have, is that the men are terrible. Yeah. There's no good men in the diocese. There's no good women in the diocese. Look, like, stop sleeping around. If you're watching this, you're probably not, but maybe you are. And if you are, stop whacking off. It's very simple. Stop whacking off. The reason why these people are dating for like 6 years and stuff is they're either fornicating or whacking off. Yeah. The sexual urge is strong. And if you're feeling a vocation to marriage, go on dates. These women now, I talk to these Zoomers. I have a nanny. She's like 28, which is, I don't know what that is anymore, but 27.
That's still maybe zoomy, a little zoomy.
But yeah, I'm like, she's a prot. And I'm like, what are the guys like? She's like, they're all self-absorbed, or they're party guys or whatever. And if they're at church, they're kind of like dorks. Yeah. Like that. You don't have to be a dork. And that's, I guess, my main critique of like the Groypers.
Don't be a dork.
Like, look, we can put the blue hats on and go stomp ass and kick shit up and like actually get a real movement going that's pushing the Overton window far wide open. But like Pat Buchanan, who is the grandfather of that, would think you guys are gay. Like
when visually it's not, because like when Nick did the AFPAC where it was during the Kanye thing, when he was in front of that glowing screen, I was like, aesthetically this is awesome.
Oh no doubt. It is awesome.
Like, that's not a dork, you know what I mean? Like,
that's
a
not.
Cool thing.
I know, but when you're the philosopher king who isn't getting a wife,
Yeah.
You know, I'm just
Yeah.
like, my guy, like it's still the post-industrial malaise and decadence and effeminacy at the end of the day that I think is just driving a lot of people to not. It's like when you're in middle school and you're at a dance and all the guys are on one side of the room, the girls are on the other side of the room, and one guy's like, I'm going to go talk to Susan or whatever. I'm going to go talk to her. And they're like, no, you won't, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, you won't do that. Yeah, I'm going to go talk to her. And then he walks out. He's like, no, that's gay, dude. I'm not. And they're like, yeah, that's totally gay. This sucks.
Yeah.
But we're going to stand here.
Right.
But this sucks, and it's gay to go walk across the room. You don't want to go get you. But really, they're scared. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of fear. Yes, the economic landscape blows. You've got to make a lot of money to go live in a nice place. That's not just some middle of nowhere place, right? Like,
right.
And that's what we're talking about here. Like housing's not affordable. Well, if you go far enough away from a big city, then yeah, it does get way more affordable, and it's not crazy to think you could go work a job and get a mortgage.
Right.
Okay. It's all about, do I want to work here and live here? What am I trading off here? And if you really want to get married and be the ultra Chad, like you have to roll up to Olive Garden with 6 kids.
Right.
I'm literally not like, I don't know. It's so frustrating to me.
On our old show, I did talk about this, and I said my hope is that these guys are on the path of doing what they're talking about as far as family goes. Like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, I wasn't thinking about that stuff when I was 20 and 21.
Absolutely not.
And even later
I was
than that,
drunk as shit.
Yeah, dude. Like I had a career where I traveled the world with very famous people. I did that for 4 years, and I lived a very, I'd call it a gay lifestyle now, not like literally gay, but it was just, it was fornicating, and it was just kind of taking advantage of people, and it wasn't a good look.
It was grimy or grimy.
It was a grimy, but I was also like engaged at the time because I thought that, I did have a life with someone. She turned out to be like a they, them later on, which, I dodged a real bullet there.
Yeah. You might have even cast some of the bullet.
I could have.
Yeah.
I could have. I've been like this mostly on the political side my whole life. There was like a little period of libertarianism in there. But,
many such cases.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I remember, can't remember if I was talking to Nick or if I was talking to maybe Elijah Schaefer, but he was on one of our shows or I was on his show, but I was talking about, this kind of, these Zoomers really got to stop pontificating about, what it is to have a family and, being the Chad husbands and stuff like that if they're not going to do it. But then I was like, my hope is that they are actively seeking it. And I don't know if they are. My hope is that they're actively seeking it.
Well, it doesn't seem like it. I mean, no one's getting married.
Well, when I suffered through the podcast of Michael Knowles and having that chick Pearl on the show, where when people
I've only seen
people
clips of it.
prop this type of person up as some sort of intellectual person that needs to be listened to, I think you deserve, you deserve what you get with these guys who are not getting married because they're listening to this retarded woman talk about how, I don't know why guys would want to sign up and sign a contract when, they just get taken advantage of and their kids get taken away and they got to pay child support. Listen, if a guy marries a woman, they have a family, to the day that those kids are dead or he has a responsibility, both financial and physical, to those kids. I don't care if I have to pay child support. Those are my kids. I have a moral duty to do that. So you're going to say don't get married because you might have to pay child support because some mean woman takes your kids away? Like, so be it. It's not to say don't get married.
You just have to have discernment, guys. Like, we all have a good gaydar, right? You have to have a whoredar. You've got to have a crazy dar. Listen, the hot crazy matrix should be in the Smithsonian.
It really should.
Just watch that and you literally use that as a guide. Because if a woman has integrity, this is what I'm talking about. You can find I don't know. I mean, it's all subjective, right? Like the scoring. But go find yourself an 8.
Yeah.
Or a 7. But the aggregate score is so much more important than the looks.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. Like that. When you have an intellectual connection, not even intellectual, when you have an emotional and a physical and a spiritual bond with a woman, it's attractive.
Yeah.
And like you said, I don't know. I've been around. I haven't traveled the world and done the famous people stuff, but I've been around a lot of very attractive people. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, okay,
it gets old.
It gets old. Like,
gets old.
I'd rather go home.
Of the women. Listen, there are a lot of bodies out there. I don't want to be like a whatever podcast, like how many bodies? There are a lot. Out of a lot of them, I had no emotional or even intellectual connection with any of them. And I mean, when you're in Chicago for one night, that rarely happens.
Right.
But when I met my wife on Tinder, and there was a physical attraction there first. Oh, she looks cute, you know.
Well, that's how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't start off as like, hey, we're dating, you know. It started off kind of like the opposite way that relationships should start off. But like 3 months into our I call it a courtship or our dating, you know, I think I visited her house because she was living at home. I was living at home. I just had gotten into an accident, and it was the only reason why I moved back to New York.
Oh shit! What happened?
I almost got killed by a vase on a music video set.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like almost took my hand off. Yeah, so
that's some,
I was living.
That's some clue shit, dude.
I was living in L.A. at the time. I got hurt in New York, so I stayed in New York. So I moved back in with my folks. Got everything shipped from L.A. The girl that I was seeing, who's now my wife, but at the time she was working and she was living with roommates. But at the time, you know, something happened in the apartment where people moved out, and she moved back home. Yeah. So it was like this very traditional sort of dating thing where, you know, I wasn't sleeping over her house for the most part. Like her parents were like, "You're not." No, if you guys want to, because they had an upstairs section of their house that was pretty much private. She was like, my girlfriend at the time said, the only way you're moving in with me is once we're engaged. So it wasn't like the whole marriage thing with you know, traditional Catholics, but at least it was we are betrothed to each other. But I remember I think it was after she got home from work, I went over there, I hung out, and she asked me about my day, and she asked me if she could make me something to eat. Where I was like, this is a good girl to date. This is, you know, a great person to have as a girlfriend. But then once I sort of saw that nurturing side of her, I said, this is someone who I can have kids with. She cares about me. And yeah, I think from then on, I mean, a year to the day that we met, I proposed to her, and then 6 months later we got married.
That's great.
And it was all off of Tinder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So not to say that, you know, I don't want to totally throw Tinder away or any of this stuff, but it's about how it's used. And I wasn't using it as like a, you know, as a hookup. I was doing that in California when I lived in LA. Right. Like that's what that was used for. Yeah. I let LA get a little bit
of course.
too much on me, but
yeah, you got to wash that off.
But also at the time I was kind of crippled. You know, I had my hand in this thing and I'm like, this lady likes me. Yeah. I'm a 6 now. I was like a 3 there with my little gimpy hand at the time, trying to recuperate from this weird thing.
You're like, you know? You're like, what happened? You're like, it wasn't. It was a vase.
Yeah. No, I tell people I got it in, in a rack.
Yeah, I was fighting a black guy outside of a gas station,
or on the subway or something. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
No, this vase exploded. It was gnarly. I saw a hole through my wrist and said, "I'm dying."
That sucks. Yeah, I was a total whore. And then I met my wife, and she was a virgin. And she was like. And at the time when I met her, I had a riffraff hair. I had shaved my head, and half of it was a checkerboard, and the other half was an eagle catching a snake on a cactus. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
Oh well, that's cool that you could tell people that.
Yeah,
like, that's without shame.
It was. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Yeah. I mean, I was wearing like American Apparel. This is back in like 2010. Dude.
I worked at American Apparel.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Classic.
I'm not gonna lie. Like I worked at American Apparel. I worked in the stockroom. I stole a lot of things.
Classic.
I stole a lot of things. I don't know if I've ever confessed that. I probably should. Yeah, Father, back in 2008, I did steal a lot of merchandise from American Apparel. And I don't really.
So I looked like a crazy like wigger, right? And and my wife walks out of this restaurant near the college we went to here in Nashville, and she's like, "What's your name?" I go, "What's your name again?" Because I'd seen her out at this dance party. That's what I tell the Zoomers, like, and this is why I don't want to be too harpy on them, because they don't have these organic opportunities to meet people. Like when we were in our heyday back in the late aughts and early 2010s, you had basement dance parties, punk shows, art gallery things, pop-up shops. Happenings. You had happenings, and so you just meet people all day. Every night you'd meet the most interesting people.
Oh yeah.
So I had seen her out at this dance party downtown, and she was wearing I guess it was a costume party, but it wasn't Halloween. She was wearing this like Love Bot thing. She made a cardboard box and like had hearts on her cheek and like these antennas, and I was like, oh, she's cute. Like, yeah. And so we danced a little bit, and then she threw a glass of water in some guy's face because he was being a dick. My wife's crazy. Yeah. She's awesome. She's a total Spitfire. She doesn't take anybody's shit ever. I want to
that's
get her
my
on a
wife.
show.
Yeah.
She would have a great show. But
Yeah, I've been trying to get my wife on the show, but then I'm like, I don't want to open her to any like criticisms or mean comments.
Oh, my wife doesn't give a shit about that.
Okay.
But she loves the haters. But anyway,
Is your wife your best friend?
No, dude.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Okay, settle that.
Look, that can't be possible. She's my spouse, which is a much higher relationship.
Yeah.
Like, that's not...
You know how, for the past 3 days, I've been dealing with mostly women who don't want to grow up and who have said, I've said this 3 different times now. I've said, your spouse, your husband or wife is your spouse. It's not your best friend. And my wife was like, my wife said this. She texted me this because I was like, I'm still having problems with these people. She's like, the term best friend, if you're an adult and you're using the term best friend, you're gay. This is what my wife said, literally.
It's pretty gay.
And she was like, after high school, don't use best friend. I have a close friend. This is my good buddy. Good buddy?
Good buddy's
If I'm
good.
someone's good buddy, if I'm a great friend,
Yeah.
this is my pal, I've known him forever. But using a best friend should stop after high school.
Yeah. And especially, don't ever tell anyone that.
No. I've said to these women, I was
don't
like,
ever tell anyone you're my best friend.
I said, go introduce your husband at the next dinner party as your best friend. See how that goes. See how
I
it
would
goes.
be like, look, my wife, the reason why I'm even doing this show again is because my wife's like, please stop talking to me about this shit. Stop. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened to the princess. Is she really missing? I want to know, is there a hoax going on? Is there a conspiracy that Princess Kate
is she deep into House and Habit?
Yeah, no, I don't even know what that is.
It's an Instagram account. She probably is.
Okay, I have no idea.
Yeah.
She's into like woman shit. Okay? She doesn't even like the music I like. She wants to hear literally Britney Spears and like 90s country. I like both of those. I don't give a shit. She doesn't want to hear some esoteric B-side from some, 300 print vinyl. I don't even collect vinyl, but like she didn't want to hear like John Mouse or,
My wife got me more into better music, I guess.
Yeah, because I'm a music guy.
Yeah.
And so I don't need her to love like whatever I'm into.
Right.
I don't need that.
No.
She understands me more than anyone else, though.
It's an elevated. I told this one kid in account, he's like, dude, you don't even like your wife? Like, and I said, listen, the day of that marriage, from that point on, the relationship is elevated and it should be treated as such. Okay. Yeah. And this is, I said, I did a meme where I put the I can't remember if it was the Drake going like, that one, best friend, like wife, like spouse. But then I said, if you call your spouse your best friend, you're a Protestant because you don't care about the traditional, you don't care about what marriage is as a tradition. You don't value it. You put your own interpretation on what a marriage is, and that's what Protestants do.
It's also sometimes as simple as like, can the boss really be the best friend? I'm just kidding.
No, but
can you be best friends with your boss?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I say that in half in jest, but like at the same time, there is a relationship there as a husband. I'm the head of the house.
Right. It's a different relationship.
I'm the head of my wife. Like she's the neck.
It's a venerated relationship.
Yeah.
And
like my wife and I don't like each other half the time.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
We got kids. We're married. We're humping each other. Who cares if we don't like each other?
That's the thing. I think a lot of it is this weird sort of. I think there might be a little bit of a hole somewhere in whoever says the best friend thing, because I think it also is like, oh, it's a feelings thing. I know my guy. We do all our stuff together. He's my best friend. We do everything together. Blah 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 blah. Okay, either you don't want to hurt his feelings by not calling him your best friend, or you want to feel validated in some sort of way where you feel cool in front of your peers who maybe not have the best marriages or whatever. But I married my best friend. I get that. I understand it. It's still retarded and gay.
Right.
But at the same time, maybe they're like father issues. Maybe, the girl who's saying it had some father issues.
I think it's
who
just
knows?
kind of the soy thing.
It really is.
I mean, look, it's not the biggest hill to die on, in my opinion. Like,
I will.
You can do it. Look, if you find a woman that's killer and you guys get along and you like the same stuff and you really get it and you jive and that's great. Good.
Sorry.
But at the same time, I think you're right. Like, men can be best friends or whatever, but My wife's boyfriend.
Right.
Wife. Yeah, I mean, okay, look, this sounds all complicated and complex. Just court women, okay?
Here's the thing. And you know what? Let them be it's fine if they're your boss, because I'm getting a text like, hey, we need to eat at a decent hour. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like 10 minutes max, maybe more at this, right? You know what I mean? And Pearl was asking Michael Knowles, well, like, why do they say cheaper to keep her, happy wife, happy life? And Michael Knowles were like, well, those are just kind of jokes that are ironic a little bit. And she's like, well, then why do they exist? And Michael Knowles literally has to explain to this woman what a joke is.
Yeah, it also is cheaper to keep her. I'm
Right.
sorry, what?
Yeah, it also
You know
is.
what divorce
you don't
is?
want your wife to be happy.
Like divorce sucks. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like you're in a contract. You're in a holy contract, which is a covenant. Mm-hmm. It's set aside for God, but you literally enter into a whole. Like Chad Ripperger talks about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're in a contract with this woman. You are to do these wifely things. I'm to do these husbandly things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're running on that.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're not like stoked that your wife. Dude, one time I know we got to go.
Yeah.
My wife went out to eat at a hot chicken place of ill repute.
Okay.
She came home from the girls' night, which usually means it's great.
Yeah.
We're humping and whatever. Not that night.
Yeah.
She fell asleep. I'm up at like midnight watching a YouTube video of Marines killing the Taliban or whatever.
Sure.
Like it's like a POV.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, this is awesome. My wife wakes up and starts vomiting and having diarrhea at the same time
she's Xing out?
From this hot chicken place.
Yeah.
And I stood up after watching the Marines being badass, and I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, I need a bucket and a cold washcloth. Okay? Gross. That's gross.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, my best friend. My hot best friend right now. I'm like, oh, this is my wife, and I have like a fiduciary duty.
Right, exactly, yeah.
To go get her a towel and a bucket, and then to like rub her head.
Yeah.
Pat her back.
Yeah.
Be like, that sucks. I'm sorry you're there. Because when I get sick, it's scratch your back, I scratch mine sometimes. Like when I get sick, that's the deal.
I'm kind of alone in my office
What
when
do you
I'm
mean?
sick.
Yeah. Well,
That's
man flu is real. It is real. If there's no women watching this, but if you're watching this, you're a woman.
Yeah.
Men get sicker than women. I saw some study. I don't trust studies and
I haven't
shit.
thrown up in 30 years.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What the hell?
When I was 10. This is the last time I'm thinking.
Is it a? Let me ask you this though.
Yeah.
Do you sneeze?
Yeah.
You're not one of these people that goes.
Sometimes.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't. I think it's unnatural.
Yeah. It
It's
probably
the
is.
condom of sneezing.
No, it really is, because you probably shouldn't. You should allow that to escape.
You need to expel it.
Right.
So
but I
let me
sneeze-
ask you
I
this:
sneeze
have you
out
been
my mouth.
vertigoing in the bed and like I would feel $1 million better
Yeah.
if I barf? And you're like, but I can't.
But I can't.
I can't break the streak.
But not even break the streak. I've tried. I've tried. I remember the last time that I was really like, oh, this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
It was kind of during COVID. I'd gotten COVID, and that was gnarly. Like
Oh, you got gnarled?
I got gnarled where I was like the dude from Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber, like on the toilet, like that. It was that.
Oh, really?
Times 100.
I lost my sense of taste and smell.
That never happened to me.
That's it.
But I remember it was with this girl Mary. I went to like a party at her apartment, and like an idiot, I brought a bottle of wine thinking I was gonna be cool. Like, hey, this is
Yeah.
good. She didn't drink any of it, so I was like, okay, they didn't pick my wine. I'll drink it. I nearly drank the whole bottle, and I remember I stayed over. I was like, yeah, I'm staying over.
Yeah.
Can I stay over? Yeah. And I remember, like, literally, I was in bed, not in bed. I think I was even on a couch. I stood up like that, and I was like, it's go time. This is finally it. And this was maybe like 8 years ago.
So this is pre-COVID.
This is 2012.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got my. I was like,
no.
wait a minute. How long have you been married?
This will be the last story. This was with a girl I was trying to date back in.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I remember going to the bathroom, I'm knocking on the door like, hello, why is it locked? And some girl was in there throwing up, and I was like, I got to get next to you.
Did you?
Yeah, but I didn't.
But you didn't barf.
But I felt the vertigo-y thing.
Wait, were you next to her in the toilet bowl?
Yeah.
Head to head?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Was she barfing as you were looking in the toilet bowl with her hair up?
No, I can't look. No, I don't. I was like, you do
So
your
you
thing,
did
but when it
this,
happened,
but
yeah.
you were near over
Yes,
the toilet bowl,
yeah.
or were you standing back?
I burped, and I was like, oh, it went away. And I got close one time. I was driving with my dad back. The last time we went to New York, we played golf at my friend's country club, and then I ate a hamburger on a grill, had a weird Italian salad with it, and directly after that, ice cream. So we're driving back, and we're listening to Nick Fuentes on Fresh and Fit talking with Destiny about Israel, and I'm on the highway and I'm like, I turned the thing off. I'm like, something's not right here.
I watched some of those clips. Those were good.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah. But we're on the Cross Bronx Expressway in bumper to bumper traffic, and I'm like, Dad, I gotta pull over. So I pull over. I'm on the side of the road, like trying to.
Oh, you tried to barf?
I'm trying to, because I'm like, this is like, it's here. I need to get it.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
here.
yeah,
I
yeah.
need to get it out.
And it wouldn't come.
It just wouldn't come.
I'm gonna come.
Yeah, right. But anyway, I told my dad, I'm like a 12-year-old. I'm like, can you drive while I sit in the back seat and just, try and deal with this?
So you haven't barfed in 30 years?
30 years, yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like barfing sometimes.
But I don't have an anxiety to it. I think about it sometimes, and I'm like, my kids are going to do it pretty soon. I'm going to have to deal with that.
And then you're going to barf, dude.
Maybe.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Your kids will get a barf thing, and you're going to barf.
Maybe.
Look, I don't want to challenge you not to, but I know you want to challenge you not to.
I most likely will, dude. You know
might.
what I mean? And I'll be thinking about,
Please DM me if you barf.
Yeah, I will.
On that note, barf if you need to. Find a decent woman. Go get married, or stop discerning and go to the seminary and see if you really want to go hang out with grimy goblins.
I agree.
And learn how to do the sacraments.
Yeah.
Nighty night, baby. I love you.
That was fun. Thank you.